Hello and welcome to the Hoop Collective podcast. We talk about the NBA, which we are doing on Friday morning. We couldn't do this yesterday, guys. We had to wait until today, which is taxing all of us, including our producers, because we all covered games last night. But we're getting up and turning it around so that it's passable, if you want the truth. Joining us from, Bontemps, you were in Toronto last night. But You're not in Toronto now. Where the hell are you now?
I'm in Syracuse, New York.
They let him back in.
Let me back in the country. But I'm back.
Because you drove out of Toronto last night to flee Canada, and you stopped in Syracuse to visit.
Stopped in Syracuse to visit the stopping grounds of Mac-10 and Nick Friedel, among others.
And our producer Jackson Agello.
I was not saying his name on purpose because in the chat he dropped in a Go Orange, and I'm not a fan of Syracuse, so I was just trying to. I was going to give him a shout, and then he tried to get one. So.
Wow! Joining us from Salt Lake City, where is a early morning for you, Van McMahon, covering the Jazz and Mavericks closeout game. What's up, man?
Howdy, partners.
That's a tired McMahon. Bontemps, I spent most of my career in the Eastern Conference, covering the Eastern Conference. I've covered a few Western Conference series, but I got to props to McMahon. Covering these West series, especially like games 4, 5, 6, we're going back across, you're making 4-hour flights and going across 2 time zones, like 3 times in a week.
A lot of ground to cover.
Rough, man.
Plus, I was all set up to get like quality game day nap. And you boys, especially when you're covering these Western series, the value of a game day nap. And then I get a call or a text from an editor asking for a serious news story on Rudy Gobert getting stung in the face by one of the bees from his hive. So my nap got disrupted. I almost got stung by a bee last night. I was waiting to do a hit outside. One of the local ESPN radio station had a little setup outside, and seriously, a bee came up, and I was, figured out, with my elusiveness, I figured out a way to avoid it. And so I see Rudy Gobert come in, and he's, in his highlight designer suit, his highlight yellow designer suit. And I told him, I said, Rudy, like, if you need to know some technique, I just avoided a bee. He said, the bee was my friend. I was not trying to avoid him.
Well, his friend's dead.
That might have been just like the Jazz.
Yeah, I was going to say, and ain't that fitting.
By the way, before we get started, a couple weeks ago, we banned talk about a certain team until the playoffs are over because they're done playing basketball, and we talk about basketball in the pod. Same thing for the Brooklyn Nets. We're done with the Brooklyn Nets until after the playoffs.
Okay, so what's the rule? Because I thought we were going to talk about the Jazz a little bit. So what we need to
the Jazz played basketball yesterday, but the other two teams.
Oh, so not. You have a 24-hour, or in our case right now, about a 5-hour.
Wow.
You got a 24-hour rule then, is what you're telling me.
Well, there's just
celebrate or mourn, but you got a 24-hour rule.
I mean,
no, I think he's just tired talking about the Lakers and Nets. I don't think it applies to the other teams.
That's correct.
Oh, so it's anti-big market media bias.
Yes, that's exactly
it. This is what Kyrie's been talking about on Twitter. I think
that's exactly it.
That's exactly right. I'm in New Orleans. We all 3 covered Game 6 games that ended up being closeouts last night. Road team won all 3. Road team higher seed won all 3. We're going to start talking, which I think is the most interesting one, with the game that McMahon was at. The Mavericks closing out the Jazz came right down to the buzzer. Bojan Bogdanovic. Sorry, yeah. Bogdan's home too.
Different countries, but they're both home.
So he missed a shot at the buzzer. It was actually, by the way, a very similar shot. You remember the end of the 2019 finals? I'm sure the Warriors fans do, when Steve Kerr designed like that sort of trap door play where Steph Curry got open and that could have forced a Game 7. And same play, just lob all the way to the backside. That one didn't go in. Neither did Bojan's. And excellent moment for Luka Bontemps. Luka goes to the second round for the first time. We'll talk in a few minutes about the matchup with the Suns, the team that I covered for this last 2 weeks. But this really was about the Jazz. And I know you were you were asking a lot of questions to Jazz players after the game. So I don't know if you could set the scene for that situation.
Yeah, and look, I mean, when we say it's about the Jazz, it's about basically, do we just watch the close of a chapter that was pretty successful and disappointing, if we're being honest? To have Gobert and Mitchell together, a decent group around them, and never get to the conference finals, much less beyond that, would certainly be disappointing. And it feels like there's going to be drastic change. We've beat around the bush all year with it. There's been so much talk all year long. And like I told Donovan when I asked him the question straight up, I said, you can say it's media, but this is the talk around the league. It's not being pulled out of thin air that Donovan Mitchell is going to ask out of his contract. So I just said, would you like to address
Not
that?
out of his contract, but
I'm sorry, yeah, right. With 3 years plus a player option left.
Out of Utah. He would like to play somewhere else.
Well, and so the first question in the press conference, he was asked, do you want to be in Utah? And he kind of gave a, yeah, man, yeah, this hurts, but yeah, I do, that sort of a thing. Not very enthusiastic. So I asked this, and I also asked, does this core need a major change? And he said, I'm a competitor. I feel like if you give us another crack at it, we can go get it. But in the same token, there's things that could change. Then he basically said, I'm not in the headspace to answer this. If you ask me that in a week, maybe, but right now I'm not in the headspace to answer that for you. So I asked him, hey, do you want out? Are you going to ask out? That's what the talk in the league's been. My mindset's to win. Like I said, right now, I'm not really looking at it in terms of asking for a trade. For me, I just want to win, then there's the big sigh. This hurts. Like I said, I'll think about it in a week and go from there. But right now, I'm not really thinking about any of that. So you've got 3 years left on your contract, on a max contract, and you need a week to think about whether you're going to ask to be traded.
Yeah, you know what he didn't say? You know what he didn't say? Yeah, no. I want to be a Utah Jazz. No, you don't. No, that's a yes or no question. And he didn't say yes.
And so, and I gave him a very hey, all the talk around the league's been you could be asking out. He could have very simply said, that is all wrong. He could have given the Dame Lillard 10 toes down, but he chose not to. He basically said, give me a week to think about it. And then you guys won't be able to talk to me anyway.
Right.
Exactly.
So, that's obviously if you're a Jazz fan, that I'm sure was hard to hear. Rudy basically said, hey, he said his goal's always been to win a championship in Utah. It still is, but basically it's out of his control in terms of whether he'll be here or not. And that's accurate. If you ask me to guess, my guess is Rudy's definitely traded, and that the front office from Ryan Smith, the majority owner, on down to Danny Ainge and Justin Zanuck, they figure out a way to, and Donovan Mitchell's part of the front office, if we're just being honest. My guess is they figure out a way to bring him back. They need somebody to be the mayor of Salt Lake City during All-Star weekend. But I don't think Donovan Mitchell's back here for very long. I don't think, I think I would say at the longest, one more season.
So here's how the conversation has played out with executives. I'm sure Bontemps will back me up on this. This is how it has gone with executives for 6 months. Yeah, they're probably going to trade Rudy Gobert. But then I don't see how that trade makes them that much better. And then there'll be a worse team. And then Donovan will definitely want out. Or I don't see why they would fire Quinn Snyder, but if they do, the replacement will be not as good, and there will be a worse team, and then Donovan will definitely want out. And that's the corner that you've boxed in. The other thing that with Utah is it's still not 100% clear about who is calling the shots, like the ultimate shot caller. Ryan Smith.
It is. It's Ryan Smith, but he has Danny Ainge here. He has Dwayne Wade here. Justin Zanuck's doing all the day-to-day work. Who's the And what's not clear is how aligned his advisory committee, so to speak, is. That's, to me, is what's
Well,
not
that's
clear.
okay. That's why you want to play. And the reason it's, look, at the end of the day, the Jazz were 52-20 last year, 52-20 in that 72 game season, number 1 overall seed, top 5 offense, top 5 defense. That is, elite defense of player, excellent offensive player. They had the profile of a champion, and obviously lose to the Clippers after Kawhi gets hurt, and then this season out in the first round. And the reason it's so interesting is not just because of what's happening with the Jazz itself, but like what it could mean to other teams in the league. And like, I'm just going to be honest. For 2 months now, I've been having routine conversations with league executives about what Rudy Gobert trades could look like. This is what the teams are talking about. Teams are talking about where Rudy Gobert is going to get traded. They're bouncing off ideas. Well, what about if this team did that? What about, he could go here, he could go there, this deal for this guy. And I mean, I know that it upset the Jazz, but like, that's reality in the world. That's what everybody's preparing for. I would say that my personal feel from the conversations I have, certainly not comprehensive, is the feel in the league is that the Jazz are going to do, as McMahon just kind of indicated, they're going to do some level of overhaul that does not include Donovan Mitchell in an attempt to make Donovan more comfortable. And that could work. It could work, but it's going to be difficult.
How comfortable is Donovan Mitchell going to be if they're playing for a play-in seed?
Well, yeah, yeah.
And tell me, you're going to trade Rudy Gobert with 4 years left on a massive contract, which minimizes his trade value. You're going to trade him and get better. Danny Ainge has pulled off miracles before. Danny Ainge has pulled off miracles before, but I think that's going to be extremely difficult to do. You boys watch Breaking Bad, right?
Oh, yep.
Yeah. So we understand the danger of half measures. So that's just what I've said it 100 times. Trade one, trade them both.
Before you go, Bontemps, let me give you Gobert's contract numbers. Next year, 37.6 million, 40.4, 43.2, 45.9.
Yeah. And so that complicates things.
Yeah. I mean, he's a good player, but
he's a really good player. He's a really good player. He's a really good player.
And if he lands in certain situations, I think he's going to have a chance to be a final piece of a championship puzzle. But it's not in Utah.
Yeah, and look, I mean, we've talked about this before, right? I mean, you make a really good point, McMahon, about the All-Star game next year. Fans might think that's a dumb reason not to make a trade, but that's a reason teams don't make a trade. I mean, you can go back to Kemba Walker not getting traded by the Charlotte Hornets when they didn't sign him to the Supermax contract, and you can say that the Hornets made a smart move not to sign him to that deal. You can argue they got Terry Rozier in a sign and trade, but I think the fact that Charlotte had the All-Star game, the final year of his contract, I think made it more difficult for them to trade him in their mind, as opposed to having an All-Star point guard to market all year as the guy who was going to be the mayor of their All-Star game. And
when you arrived in Charlotte, Kemba had like a message. Hello, this is Kemba Walker of the Charlotte Hornets.
That's right.
I don't know if Donovan would be willing to put himself out there like that and be a pitch man. I don't know if that's in his nature.
Well, and look, I think Rudy Gobert is the best player on the Jazz. I think Donovan Mitchell's a very good player, but I think you've seen when Rudy's not on the court, this team's struggles are exacerbated pretty dramatically. And for all the talk that this team, lost in the playoffs last year because Rudy was on the court, they lost because they couldn't guard anybody on the perimeter because they built the team around Rudy's strengths inside.
Right. But the other thing that we've seen is with Rudy, they aren't good enough to get over the hump.
100%.
We
100%.
We can keep on. Hey, they've been the continuity cops for a few years now, and the book's out on them. Like, hey,
100%.
All right. So which teams do we think are potential Gobert teams?
So It depends. If they are trying to do something where it is, hey, let's do something that gives us a chance to stay competitive and keep Donovan Mitchell happy, I think that would take the Mavericks out of the mix. I think the Mavericks would have to be, if you're looking for the team that's going to throw all the picks in and you're going to start your rebuilding process and you're going to try to put your name in the mix for the next French big man, Victor
Oh my
W.,
God.
who's going to be a generational type of prospect.
Victor Wembanyama.
At the top of next year's
Holy
draft.
Moses. Holy Moses. We'll
And-
talk about him in the future.
And again, that's why to me it's like no half measures.
How can they
blow it up?
How can they do that, McMahon? How can I mean, that's a hell of a blow up you're talking about there. That's trading everybody. Everybody.
Trade Donovan, trade Rudy.
That's it. Yes.
Have a
They trade
fire
Donovan,
sale.
they trade Donovan, they trade Rudy. They're not going to be good, probably.
Yeah,
I mean,
and by the way, their 2024 first round pick is top 10 protected, owed to Oklahoma City for dumping Derek Favors contract. Oof. So you
well,
better
they might be in the top.
Yeah.
They might be in the top 10 by then. I would guess they will be, frankly,
Well,
at this
Man,
point.
you know,
that's
that's
what
not the
you better be.
ethos. That's not the ethos of Jazz basketball. The Jazz
I
made
mean,
the playoffs
listen,
20
you can
consecutive years that at one point. That's
listen.
not
You could say it's the ethos or not. I mean, look, what I was going to say before is you take Rudy Gobert off this team isn't good. They will not be able to guard anybody. So, like to McMahon's point, if they're trying to trade Rudy Gobert and get back pieces to win now, they're going to have to get a lot of pieces back,
So
which makes it really hard.
Dallas has been discussed, but I agree with you, McMahon. I don't see the piece there. I mean, not only do you have to have something that satisfies Utah, you got to have a lot of money because I just told you his salary is in the high.
Well,
30s.
I disagree because I think that I personally think Rudy's value in the marketplace is going to be under what his talent level and production is going to be.
Well,
I think
we all agree on that because of the contract.
Yeah, well, I think some of it's because of the contract. I also think he's just frankly underrated in the league. I think a lot of people undervalue him because he is a 7-2 center, because he doesn't do a lot of stuff with the ball on offense.
Because non-shooting centers have kind of gone the way of the dinosaur.
Well, right. But I do, and even his defense, I think, is underrated too. I think a lot of people, even in the league, look at what happened in the playoffs last year and blame it on him, where I personally do not. I don't blame it on him. I blame it on a team that tried to maximize what they had, and because of that, found themselves in a position where they couldn't beat a Kawhi Leonard-less Clippers team. However,
I was making
forward.
such a
What
smooth
teams?
I was trying to make such a smooth transition from gone the way of the dinosaur to the Raptors, and Bontemps kept yelling.
I was going to try to answer Brian's question
I wish Bontemps
about other
would go the way of
teams.
the dodo birds. That's what I was trying to do. I was trying to mention the Raptors, okay, who I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Is Pascal Siakam potentially available there? That could be really interesting for the Jazz.
I think
measures.
I think that Siakam potentially could be available for the right trade. I don't know if it's for Rudy Gobert though.
Okay. I think we need to look at Atlanta.
I was going to say Atlanta.
To me, the team that makes the most sense is Atlanta, because their defense is horrific. It's holding them back.
Mm-hmm.
And Trae Young has got to get better defensively. We understand he's not going to be Gary Payton, but he has to improve. He's got to try to get.
He's got to try. He's got to try. There's a lot of times on defense when Trae doesn't put in enough effort. He just has to try hard.
The offense is my defense act with him is strong. But you think about that team. That team has a ton of various types of players that they can trade. A lot of them are under large contracts, and you could just start. The basis of it would potentially be discussing the swap of the centers, Capella.
Yeah.
And then you start talking about what else, potentially the Hawks could toss in there. And if you give, and I know that Gobert isn't a perfect fit for today's defensive styles, but you take a team that is so terrible on defense, like the Hawks, they were in the play-in because their defense is so bad. And you give them a player that is, difference making.
Trae Young could hit a lot of lobs to Rudy Gobert.
You know who had the most assists, one player to another this year?
Trae
Young to Clint Capella, and the lobs numbers were a huge part of that. Rudy's love language is lobs. So
It's true.
So that certainly would.
How do you say lob in French?
You know what? I should know that. I should know. I asked him how to say "f the talk" in French, and I didn't get a direct translation of that either.
$15,000. That's how it's, or whatever he got fined for saying that.
I think it was 25.
25. Okay.
25.
Um,
So, Hawks, Capella, maybe like a Capella Herder thing, and we can talk about picks.
well, I
don't
would
know.
be looking for perimeter defense, and DeAndre Hunter is a guy that I would be interested in. But I think the Hawks make
are
sense.
looking to be a good defensive team, so they're trying to hold on to him.
Well, true, but the Jazz need perimeter defense. I a few months ago I was, I've speculated that the Grizzlies need a trade for one more piece. I've termed it their Andre Iguodala move. The Grizzlies have a bunch of picks. They have some young players. They obviously would have Steven Adams in that type of trade.
It's interesting.
I kind of got pushed back on that because the Grizzlies. I was sort of told we're not interested in going that direction, but I mulled over and I've talked with executives about whether the Grizzlies, depending on how the season ends for the Grizzlies, they need one more piece in my mind. Of course, they're having a problem regarding Karl Towns, and I'm not sure that Gobert solves the Karl Towns problem. But
Steven Adams sure doesn't, even before he got in health and safety protocols. The Hornets, and not just because of Rudy's affinity for stingers. They've been looking for a center for a while now.
The Hornets paying that kind of money.
You talk about it. You talking about a team though with a lob thrower and some defensive issues. I mean, they definitely fit in that category. Now, what exactly that kind of move looks like, I don't know.
Gordon Hayward would have to go back to Utah. That seems unlikely. That's the only way they could do it financially. Yeah, I mean, that's the tricky part. Rudy's contract.
Listen, no, but get a third team involved.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I think Dallas is. I think Dallas. Dallas being motivated to go after him, I think is going to give them a real shot. Because, like I said, my point I was making before is I just don't think the market is going to be as robust as it should be. And I think even if they just come in with a bunch of picks and are willing to take and want to take him, that could allow the Jazz to flip those picks and money into other stuff. And that might be the way this happens. And I think if somebody aggressively goes after Rudy, I think they got a real shot at him. And to your point, McMahon, I know you were alluding to Dallas. I mean, if you put Rudy with Luka, like I think team is going to have a real shot to win a title. When
you talk about 3-team trades, I was talking to a general manager last week, and he's like, "Look, we all think the Lakers are going to try to trade Russ as much as they can for whatever they can." And Gobert out there, two giant salaries that could be traded. When you start looking at trades, that's what the executives are looking at. Are there 3-team trades where Gobert and Russ are involved, and there's a wheel that rotates them around and that moves them one to the other. And so when you have two big contracts like that can be traded for each other, not to be 1 trillion% clear, not that they would be traded for each other. 1 billion trillion% clear.
You don't think Russ would be a good fit in Utah?
I'm sure the Lakers would do that deal. But they could be traded for each other and then used for the third team. One of the difficulties with 3-team trades is making the math work on big numbers because you got to include a lot of guys.
I know Rudy and Draymond Green have a great relationship. Any Golden State possibilities?
I have heard that rumor out there. I guess it would be based around Wiggins. I don't know if the Warriors might win the title this year. And if they win the title, I don't know if they're looking for a major shakeup, but that's the one spot that the Warriors are they don't have that big, and they have young players and they have the Wiggins contract.
Wiggins and Wiseman, that's the start there.
Their salaries, so their payroll is wild. Even that move. So I think that, I don't think they should be considered a leader, but I think that's on the board. I've definitely heard that. All right, let's put the Jazz away for now. We're going to be talking more about them, unfortunately, for their fans, not their play, but probably their moves. We'll see what happens with Quinn Snyder in the coming days.
Ultimately, to put a bow on it, McMahon, between Quinn, Rudy, and Donovan, how many of them are back next year as of today?
One.
I'm tempted to say none, but I think one's probably the right answer.
I don't think they're trading. Like, people keep asking me about this, and I would just say they're not there yet. And it may be very much a yet.
Listen, and that's, I do question whether Donovan has it in him to be, quote unquote, the bad guy, and to really push hard at this point. Now, they do some half measures, it doesn't work out, then hey, okay, we tried. I got through All-Star weekend and really, man, pitched that city and I'll always love Utah and blah blah blah. I question that. I also listen, if he does push with 3 years left on his deal, it ain't pick your team. That's and I would be, and obviously the Knicks have been very transparent about their desire for Donovan to push it for a trade to New York. I would say Worldwide West showing up courtside at the Jazz's playoff opener. I don't know if that necessarily helped make that.
Well, they could say that was possible for Jalen Brunson. They could have.
No, they could also say, hey, I was sitting right next to Julius Randle. He's a Dallas native. I was just visiting Julius, and we went to the Perot Museum, and then the Mavs game was just around the corner.
Sixth Floor Museum.
Yeah, well, there's that too. There's also the Perot Museum. If you want, if I'm an educational type of fellow, I can take you there if you ever come through.
It'd be lovely. I thought I was gonna do it for this next round, but McMenamin stole the Suns from me. Well, I'm being shipped up to Boston.
Mac 11 gets to pick what bandwagon he's hopping
on. Imagine McMenamin, who was covering the Heat, going, no. Enough Miami. Please, Phoenix and Dallas. Thank you. Enough Miami for me. I can't take it. Miami in the spring.
Listen, dude, the joys of hanging out with me. I can't blame them.
Listen, I feel you.
They say if you want to get to know a person, travel with them. The same is true for cars. That's why CarMax has reimagined the test drive. With their new Love Your Car Guarantee, CarMax will give you a 24-hour test drive before you buy. And after you buy, CarMax has you covered with a 30-day money-back guarantee, up to 1,500 miles. So hit the road and really get to know your car with the new Love Your Car Guarantee. Learn more at CarMax.com. CarMax. Car buying reimagined. With the safe return of live events, you can actually be there to catch all the action in person with Vivid Seats. That's right, every alley-oop slam, every one-timer, every sideline grab can be experienced live. And with Vivid Seats rewards, you can earn rewards like free tickets. All you have to do is collect stamps, redeem, and repeat. It's that easy. From upper level to courtside, Vivid Seats has you covered for all the events that matter to you. So grab your tickets today and cheer on your favorite team from the stands. Visit vividseats.com to download the app today. Vivid Seats. Life happens live.
All right, before we move on to the Raptors Sixers, it's trivia time, Bontemps. This trivia is brought to you by CarMax. Shop online and on the lot with home delivery in select markets. Okay, we are in the playoffs. Stats Williams has been firing. Stats Williams was firing off gem after gem for me last night on on
Stats Williams is a legend. He's a legend.
14 shooting night here in New Orleans. All right, go ahead, Bontemps.
I thought this was going to become a 4-team stat. Instead it is a 3-team stat. The Toronto Raptors failed to make this 7-game series last night after going down 3-0. There were 3 teams in history that did that before. Okay. You're not gonna get the first one because it was the Knicks in 1951 against the then Rochester Royals. So we'll set that one aside. So since then, there are 2 teams that pushed a series from 3-0 to 7 games. Can you name the teams? McMahon should get one of them automatically.
One was the Jail Blazers against the Mavericks, and help me out with the year, but the Mavericks
2003.
Yeah, there you go. 2003.
That was the end of the Jail Blazers. That was the
That's right.
Can you give me a hint on the other one?
The other one, I did not remember until I got the stat. They were famous. They were famous for knocking out a number 1 seed in the playoffs.
I think that Jailblazer series was both teams played hard. I think
that may have been correct.
I believe that was Rasheed Wallace's both teams played hard series. Last night was reminiscent of Dirk's Utah's a Bad City series. It was this is where Dirk got his first playoff series victory, and kind of a cute little coincidence. Same with Luka, same arena and all, different name but same arena. Okay, so I was yammering too much to get the hint.
The hint was this team is famous for beating a number 1 seed in the playoffs, in the same playoffs.
Okay, so
that's what people remember them for.
Was it the Grizzlies then?
No.
The year they beat the Spurs? No, not the We Believe Warriors.
Nope.
I would just guess the Nuggets then. Nuggets over.
Yeah, that is it.
Okay.
Yeah, but I didn't know it. It was because of process of elimination.
They played the Jazz in the second round. So they beat the Sonics in the first round, and then they lost in 7 to the Jazz in the second round after being down 3-0, which I did not remember until I
didn't
got
know it
either.
either. I'll tell you what, I'll bet there was some sweating going on in Game 7 there in Utah. Holy Moses! After that, they thought they had it easy after the number 1 seed got knocked out. All right, Bontemps, you were pretty loud that you thought that the Sixers were in big time trouble after they lost Game 5.
I thought I would be the first to say, and I'll tell you what, everybody around the Sixers felt the same way. I mean, you want to know how the Sixers felt about this? Last night after the game, Tobias Sayre said, "Yeah, we didn't want to go back to Wells Fargo for a Game 7." You know what? Nobody with the Sixers wanted to go back to Wells Fargo in Philadelphia for a Game 7.
The Sixers don't call it
Wells Fargo. Tobias actually called it Wells Fargo, which may be even funnier because the Sixers owners do not, for many reasons we'll not get into.
They call it. That is, in fact, the name of the arena, but they call it the arena. Is that right?
They call it the center because of many disputes they have about the arena.
Would have been great if he was like, "We didn't want to go back to the center."
Yes, that would have been truly hilarious. But because James Harden at one point, obviously, they're bearing the lead. The Sixers blew out the Raptors last night and played great. But James Harden goes, "Oh yeah, we weren't going back to Philly for a Game 7," which is kind of what you say. But Tobias sort of put more truth to it, which is that. Look, if the Raptors were pushing this series back to Philadelphia tomorrow for a Game 7, everybody in Philadelphia was ready for this team to choke. I mean, on Monday night in Game 5, this crowd was already down on the team in the first quarter of the game. Like, they were just ready for the other shoe to drop. And ironically, it felt a lot like, Brian, those Raptors teams before the Kawhi year, when, as you know, whenever you covered the Raptors and they would lose the first game of basically every series back then, everybody in Toronto would go, "Oh, they're going to get swept. They're going to pull a team up. It's going to be a disaster." And they came back and won a lot of those series, but just there was a perpetual feeling of doom around the team. And after Philly was up 3-0, things are great. Joel hits the shot. Then he comes in. His thumb is bothering him. They lose Game 4. They get blown out in Game 5. It's like, oh, no, things are going to hell. And I got to give them credit. They came out, yes, the couple days before Game 6. Everybody said they were going to be aggressive. They're going to come out and win the game. They just had to show up and win the game. And, you never know if that's talk or if it's how the team actually feels.
I have to say, it was legendary, Doc Rivers defending his. And it took like 3 minutes because he had so many blown leads. Like, first there was this, that team sucked. And then there was this, and then he's just like, well,
yeah,
Clippers,
look at that Magic roster. What a coaching job I did.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing.
It was quite the thing.
Oh man!
But listen, there was real pressure on this team to win this game, and I give them a lot of credit because the crowd was juiced up in Toronto. They really don't like the Sixers. They thought they had a chance to get back in the series, and James Harden played great. Joel Embiid played great. Tyrese Maxey got back in the series and played great. And it just was
Harden looked like a star for stretches of that game.
He did. Had 2 days off. He had 2 days off, and I'm sorry to say, but that really matters for him.
Yeah, and I thought, after Doc's performance at the between game presser, I thought Harden might get up there and explain all his elimination game issues. I thought, hey, well, let me explain this 2 for 11, and then that 2 for 11, the one against the Warriors, the one against the Spurs, and kind of go on down the list there. But I guess he didn't feel.
Which ones am I missing? What am I missing?
Well, listen, and if you look at that game last night, I mean, look, Harden was great. I think he had 22 points and 15 assists. I think he was 7 for 12 from the field. But you want to look at what's indicative. The play that's indicative of that game last night is about 2 minutes into the game. James Harden gets the ball on the right wing. And the seas part like he's Moses, and he just walks to the rim and dunks.
Another Sixers great.
Another Sixers great, yes. And he just walks to the rim and dunks the ball like nobody's there, with nobody even trying to guard him.
It's because the Raptors don't have a center, which is why we were talking.
Well, but it's not just that. It's that the Raptors just did not execute defensively at all game. And the games that James got off in this series, games 1, 2, and 6, and not coincidentally, the games the Raptors got blown out of the building. Those were the games where they did not stick to the game plan and they allowed him to just get where he wanted. Because frankly, Joel Embiid was the best player on the court last night, and he sort of put to bed any thoughts that his thumb is going to be an issue to me going forward.
That's a really good point.
When he tomahawked his dunk with 2 minutes to go and tried to rip the rim off the backboard. And he had 33 and 10 and was great. But this Sixers team is going to go as far as James Harden can take them. And in the 3 games in this series where they won big, he was awesome. And the other 3 games in the series, they basically trailed the whole game, and he was not very good. And ultimately, when you look at this second round series of the Miami Heat, that's what it's going to come down to. Can James Harden score against them?
Let's talk
about
that.
Here comes Bam, the number 4 player in Defense Player of the Year voting, and determined to make a point that, hey, should have been a hell of a lot higher.
It was number 1 on my ballot. I'm at a cross here. I got him.
What did you go? Did you just go? Was your awards ballot just like a straight Heat flush?
No, absolutely not. I don't think I had any Heat players on my All NBA team.
Well, I know you had Hero as MVP.
Actually, I had Bam. I had Bam 3rd team All NBA. Oh, Hero. Yeah. Okay. Look, this series.
It's delicious. This series is gonna be awesome.
Gonna be a lot of fun. Jimmy back to Philly. Joel and Bam, James Harden against that defense. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah. So look, I mean, Spo is been crafting this game plan now. And, the thing about the Heat's defense and just in general, the Heat's versatility, their depth gives Spo so many different cards to play. Throughout the course of the season, they had so many guys injured and they played so many different lineups that Spo trusts so many guys. I mean, Victor Oladipo is now a guy he trusts. Gabe Vincent, a guy who was barely hanging on to the NBA a year ago. He'll start him if he has to. He'll play him big minutes. He'll play him down the stretch of a game. If there's foul trouble, he'll put in a rookie, Omar Yurtseven. He's not afraid to do it. And so I think the big thing will be, will the Heat be able to keep Embiid from absolutely going clean off? Because Bontemps, I think that's what it's going to take. Embiid's performance in Game 6 when he had that big game, re-lifted hopes that he can play through that thumb injury. But I think for the Sixers to have a chance in this series, just to be honest, I think it's got to be Embiid averaging mid-30s, hitting threes, getting Bam into foul trouble, playing great. I think Embiid's going to have to be all-encompassing to try to handle this team 4 out of 7.
Well, Embiid's got to be great, but this is about Harden. He's going to be the reason whether they win the series or not. It's going to be, can James Harden?
I can't count on him.
Well, yes, I know. That's why the Heat are probably going to win the series. But that's the question: is can James Harden against a defense where, again, the other key is, will Kyle Lowry and Jimmy Butler be healthy? I mean, Jimmy Butler all of a sudden being out at Game 5 with knee soreness, like, let's see what he looks like after basically a week off. Is he going to be able to play? Is he going to have issues? I mean, if he can't play, things change dramatically. But if he's healthy and Kyle Lowry's back from this hamstring injury, which again, old guy, just turned 37, I believe. Let's see how he responds to that.
All these day-to-day hamstrings.
Right. But if those guys are healthy, you got PJ Tucker, you got Bam Adebayo, you got even Max Strus, a big physical guy. It's going to be hard for Harden to move off his spot. Mm-hmm. Can James Harden attack and score against a team like that? If he can, then I think Philly can win the series. If he can't consistently get offense going against them, I think it's going to be really hard because Embiid is going to get his points. He's going to score. But they traded for James Harden to be the guy who could carry them the rest of the time. And when he is feeling good and playing well, the ball is popping, he's getting guys set up for open threes, everything else starts to fall into place. And that's why you saw, like I said, in the 3 games he played really well in the series, they destroyed Toronto. And that was the difference. Embiid was pretty good every game other than game 5, pretty good to great. But Harden went very up and down. And so that to me is going to be the real key, is what happens with him.
Yep. And I just have no idea. I mean, I don't believe in it, but
Yeah. That's why I'm probably going to pick Miami to win the series, because I can't really trust James Harden to do it.
Well, it's James Harden against a great Miami defense, several great defenders, and the South Beach scene. So there's a lot really going on there.
So Chris Paul, and I mean this may be normal. I don't want to say this is anything special, but from what I hear, Chris Paul instituted a curfew in New Orleans during this series. He's like, we're going to have a room for cards and we're going to have a room to watch the games, and have at it, guys, have dinner, but be back. I don't know what the curfew was. I never heard the time, but gentlemen, you're going to be back here in this hotel at X time. Not from the coaching staff. Chris Paul issued.
By the way, I would have loved if Chris Paul issued that edict when he was with the Rockets.
Yeah,
would have been a good try.
Did Philly go immediately down to Miami from Toronto, or did they go back to the center first?
Well, they took a bus over the border like I did, so I didn't take a bus, but so I not right away.
Who drove that bus? That's very important for Barkley. It must have been Embiid.
Probably was.
Oh
Maybe they
gosh.
brought in KD to drive the bus. Maybe they brought him in.
Hey,
He
he's
was
got time, a freelance bus driver these days. That's what. Hey, he's been a freelance bus driver, I guess, for the second half of his career,
Wow.
if you want to look at it that way.
Wow. All right.
Bus driver for hire.
Well, that's going to be a great series, though. Very excited for it.
Bontemps is headed to South Beach.
Oh Lordy.
By the way, the F1 race.
Well, at
next
least
week.
they won't let Bontemps in any of the decent spots, so they don't have to worry too much.
That's true. So the F1 race is next week, Bontemps. I don't know if you're going to be around for that.
I will not be, unfortunately.
No.
I would love to go to the F1 race. but
Man,
I won't
I'm
be,
leaving-
Rudy Gobert said F1, and then he got 25 grand docked from him.
All right. It's too early for McMahon.
Ah, that sound has to make you smile. It's the sound of another sale on Shopify, the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your business. Shopify gives entrepreneurs the resources once reserved for big business, so upstarts, startups, and established businesses alike can sell everywhere, synchronize online and in-person sales, and effortlessly stay informed. Scaling your business is a journey of endless possibility. Shopify has the tools and resources that make it easy for any business to succeed, from down the street to around the globe. Reach customers online and across social networks with an ever-growing suite of channel integrations and apps, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and more. Synchronize your online and in-person sales. Gain insights as you grow with detailed reporting, conversion rates, profit margins, and beyond. More than a store, Shopify grows with you. This is possibility, powered by Shopify. So go to shopify.com/hoop, all lowercase, for a free 14-day trial and get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. Grow your business with Shopify today. Go to shopify.com/hoop right now. Shopify.com/hoop.
Fortune favors the bold, the strong, the brave. For your business to break out of anything holding you back, you need business checking as brave as you are. Introducing Novo Business Checking. Novo is powerfully simple business checking. And unlike the traditional banking model, Novo has no minimum balances, no transaction limits, and no hidden fees. Instead of a one-size-fits-all approach, Novo is customized to your business to save you time and free up cash flow with seamless integrations to Stripe, Shopify, QuickBooks Online, and more. Sign up for Novo free and join the community of over 150,000 fearless small businesses who found the customizable business checking solution that admires their brave. Sign up for your free business checking account right now at novo.co/hoop. That's novo.co/hoop. Plus, Hoop Collective listeners can get access to over 5,000 in perks and discounts. Go to novo.co/hoop to sign up for free. novo.co/hoop. Novo Platform Inc. is fintech, not a bank. Banking services provided by Middlesex Federal Savings FA, member FDIC. Terms and conditions apply. This series that I covered ended last night. New Orleans going out with a fight. Chris Paul was an absolute master in this series, and I know his career is littered with stuff like this, but he had two 19-point fourth quarters to basically clinch games 1 and 3. He had 16-point first half in game 5 when he was still dealing with a bit of what clearly was a minor hand issue, but the Pelicans really weren't sure because after he hurt his left hand in game 4, he didn't score. He didn't score the last 3 quarters of the game.
He was also dealing with a gluteus maximus issue because Jose Alvarado and Herb Jones are royal pains in his butt.
Jose Alvarado flat out unnerved Chris at times in this series. Chris got
awesome to watch.
Chris got 2 flagrants, and one was on Herb Jones, but he was kind of mad at Alvarado when he did it. And he got 2 technicals, angry about Alvarado. And Alvarado
Let's see if those flagrant points add up later on, by the way.
Yeah.
That's going to be something to watch.
He has 2 flagrant points.
Especially with his Draymond-esque tendency to have his foot find nether regions.
Well, and remember, for all the talk in 2016, for all the talk in 2016, when Draymond got suspended, when he, hit LeBron in game 4 of the finals, what he really got suspended for, in my opinion, was body slamming Michael Beasley with a second to go against the Houston Rockets in the first round.
That's
completely
right.
ridiculous move.
Steven Adams would point out that he had a lot to do with it too. He was the one that took the biggest hit, and it was twice.
Steven Adams would say he earned those 2 flagrants.
The best quote of that entire playoff run was when Steven Adams goes, "It's happened twice. It's not that big of a target, mate."
That's true. But, my point is 1 second to go at the end of a meaningless first round game, Draymond body slams Michael Beasley, gets a flagrant, costs him a lot later. Let's see if this ends up impacting Chris Paul, because certainly the Suns are expected to be playing for a long time.
Yeah. So, and then last night, Chris blind picked Alvarado, knocked him on his backside. Chris used his backside to knock Alvarado on his backside with the brutal blind pick, and chipped Alvarado's tooth in the process.
By the way, Grand Theft Alvarado, I don't know who to credit with that, but that's the best nickname in the NBA right now.
Oh yeah, it's great, and the fans love it. And this didn't happen actually in Game 6, but in Game 4, when Alvarado was really going, every time he made a play, the fans would chant "Jose, Jose, Jose, Jose," and it was fans were super duper into it. I was here for opening night in New Orleans. The building was dead, and to be back at their last game when the building was very much alive was good to see. And
hey, man, shout out Willie Green. What dude, 2 weeks in the season, we were talking about tank it, get a top 5 pick. And they didn't make a playoff run, but dude, Willie Green did an unbelievable job for a rookie head coach for that team, given the fact that they had a 300+ pound black cloud looming over them, or looming over Portland for most of the season.
Yeah, sure did a terrific job.
Well, supposedly, it's early in the morning here in New Orleans. Supposedly Zion is going to speak to the media today for the first time since October.
Will he put on a dunk exhibition for him too? I mean, we've seen some of those.
I did with my own 2 eyes witness Zion on a court yesterday for the first time all season. I didn't actually see him do anything on that court because he's been doing his workouts before the media is allowed in. But so we'll see what he says about that. The Pelicans obviously have a bright future. This series, to me, so Chris Paul was just amazing. Booker didn't quite look right. May have come back slightly early from that hamstring. He said he felt okay, but
I was really surprised that they brought him back for Game 6. I mean, listen, they know what they're doing. I've got 8 years in college, but they've got folks with medical degrees and stuff. I was really surprised he came back for Game 6.
Well, I was just surprised he did it without really a full team workout. Like he didn't play like 5-on-5. He scrimmaged against Jarrett Jack, apparently 1-on-1. By the way, there was a hilarious thing that happened before the game yesterday. So the crowd in as other crowds have in other cities, the crowd doesn't like Jay Crowder, and they were chanting throughout the series, "Bleep Jay Crowder." So some guys who had some courtside seats showed up pregame, with these very brightly printed and on the front and back F *** K Jay Crowder exclamation point front and back. And there was I think it was a father and son, but I don't know. And they were going around and
What happened in the series to cause? What happened in the series to cause that? By the way,
just general Jay Crowder.
I just didn't know if there was a. I mean, I know Jay tends to do that. I just didn't know if there was a precipitating event that caused
love him if you have him, hate him if you face him.
Right. He was doing Jay Crowder things. No one event. Just 5 or 6 plays that upset. He was guarding Brandon Ingram, and so they're a little protective of him. So anyway, but these guys didn't just wear those shirts. They brought like a dozen more shirts that they intended to hand out. I think they were sitting in the second row. So Booker was out there for his, I'll tell you something about Booker. Booker just doesn't have patience for anything. He's very much like Kobe in this way. He doesn't like something. He's not, I mean, he can be he can mellow a little bit, but he's kind of on edge at all times. And Booker was pissed off about it. So, and the father and son are kind of posing for pictures and having fun. And they made the mistake of walking away from their seats with those Bleep Jay Crowder shirts just sitting on their chairs. So Booker goes and gets them. He and Jarrett Jack went and just took the shirts.
Listen, Jose Alvarado's not the only guy who can come.
Wait, really?
Steal in that
they
series.
They actually took the shirts.
Oh, you didn't see this, Bontemps? Jay Crowder wore one to the post-game presser.
Yeah.
So did Booker.
Wow. I didn't know. I mean, I
Booker.
was driving to Syracuse. So I did not see any of this.
Yes.
That was amazing. Holy cow.
So, and so I enjoyed that a lot. Chris Paul has these this array of suits that he's been wearing, pastel colored suits, perfectly tailored $10,000 pastel suits. He was not befouling his outfit. He was wearing a special chain last night that Lil Wayne gave him when he was a Hornet years ago. Everything was just so he wasn't sullying himself with that shirt, but Booker threw that sucker right on and brought it to the press conference, as did Jay Crowder. But this series, in addition to being about that, guys, Mikal Bridges he's an absolute stud. And if the difference between the Suns this year and last year, in my view, is that Bridges is got so much more than he can do.
And I'll tell you what, talk about
him and Booker both have taken a big step this year.
Yeah. And Bridges is a guy, dude. The Suns have to be thanking their lucky stars they got that extension done, because he would make a lot more if he was heading into restricted free agency.
Yeah, he had one of the finest two-way games I've seen in the playoffs in person in Game 5, where he had 31 points on 12 of 17 shooting. Absolutely played smothering defense. He took CJ McCollum out of the series. McCollum shot like 36% for the series. He had some moments, but he was like a shutdown corner on McCollum. And
his next assignment is going to be a little tougher.
Well, that's the thing. So, now it's going to be Luka, and the Suns really showed at times this season during this series, like in dealing with, because Brandon Ingram was a real problem. He scored 30 straight points in games 2, 3, 4.
Mm-hmm.
And the Suns kind of shut him off. I mean, he still had 22, but he didn't shoot the ball well the last 2 games. They started double teaming him and started using basically Ayton as the blanket. And it would not surprise me if that's what they do against Luka. Is their point of attack will be Bridges or Crowder, probably both. And they will use Ayton as their sort of second line. And Ayton had moments where he vanished into the wallpaper on defense in this series for sure. I mean, the Valanciunas had a couple of really significant games, but Ayton is a real, because he can move so well, he can cause problems out there by his ability to move. And he's a devastating pick and roll partner for Chris Paul. I mean, this obviously is not going to happen again, but he went 10 of 12 last night. Chris Paul went 14 of 14. They're running a pick and roll. I mean, the Pelicans just, waved the white flag. They couldn't handle it. And so I'll be interested, McMahon, if they go whole hog on that and just try to flat out double Luka, using Ayton as the pincher.
Well, I tell you what, the Jazz threw a lot of doubles of Luka in the second half last night and got absolutely torched and all series long, but in the third quarter especially, just got absolutely torched doing it because Luka, to his credit, gave the ball up and gave it up decisively and gave it up. There's sometimes guys, especially stars, they'll pass, but they'll pass only if they think they can get an assist out of it. He was giving it up and the ball was hopping around. Jalen Brunson's coming off one of the great breakout playoff series that we've seen. Talk about a Stats Williams, Jim. How about this? Brunson, 27.8 points per game in the series, 4 turnovers. Oh. That is the most points per game in a playoff series by a guy with 5 or fewer turnovers since turnovers became an individual stat in 1978. That used to be a distinction owned by one Larry Bird. So when you yeah, exactly. Ain't no discount, as Rick Brunson told me. Ain't no discount. Talk about you wish you'd have gotten an extension done. Ooh-wee. I'm excited for this series because obviously Bridges and Luka and how they deal with Luka, what you're talking about there, that's going to be a huge part of the subplot. And Bridges is going to be I think he's going to be so important on the other end. The Mavs have 2 stoppers, right? I think Bullock will spend the majority of the time on Chris Paul, and Reggie Bullock has been just a huge addition for the Mavericks for the mid-level. Last night,
Nick certainly felt his loss this year. That's for sure.
Yeah, Jay Kidd told me after the game that Reggie Bullock was sick as a dog, is what Jay Kidd said. So he only played 44 minutes last night. Finney Smith, and the only game these guys didn't play in the mid-40s in this series, Bullock and Finney Smith, was in the blowout in Game 5. And by the way, Bullock got tossed for the first 2 technical fouls of his season in that game. Finney Smith, I think, is going to be. I think his primary assignment will be Booker. So, you're leaving either Brunson or Luka on Bridges, and not that Bridges is a guy who, is going to be an ISO guy, but he's not he had a 31-point game. He can do some things offensively. I think his offense is going to be a huge factor in a series.
Well, can they stand up those minute loads? Because the Suns,
we'll find out.
Got a lot going for them.
We'll find out. Fortunately, they play the game indoors because I don't think the Arizona Heat would be much fun. But yeah, those guys, that's just the way it is. They're going to have to play mid-40s type of minutes. If they had to do it against the Jazz, I mean, with Donovan Mitchell and Conley and Clarkson, at the bare minimum, their minutes will be mirrored to Booker and to Chris Paul. And Booker's hamstring, he came back. I don't know that we can say that's definitely not an issue moving forward.
He was, he was much better by Monday when the series goes in. That'll be the 2-week zone where that should be recovered. So I don't think you'll see necessarily him scoring 30 points in the first half like he did right before he hurt it. But I would expect by Monday Booker would be, he felt strong enough to play on Thursday night. I would expect by Monday he's ready to go.
I'm tempted to pick Utah to win the series. Or not Utah.
Well, that would be
Utah would be a really bold call. That'd be a really bold call. I'm tempted to pick Dallas to win the series. I'm really fascinated by this matchup across the board. I think the fact that Luka is clearly by a very significant amount the best player in the series and is now healthy is, a pretty important factor, obviously. And also, look, we saw the Suns. It was certainly a bit of an up and down series against this Pelicans team. I've sort of wondered all year if Phoenix was a team that has just played at a super high gear all year. And if they get to the playoffs, they'll be able to go up another level. And the other thing on top of that is we saw in that series a lot of JaVale McGee, a lot of even some Bismack Biyombo. Like
that's true.
The Suns cannot play small. They have to play big all the time. And when you've got Luke out there pulling the strings and you've got the Jazz having the ability, I keep saying the Jazz. It's very early still for me.
It's Syracuse.
Syracuse is infecting my brain. The Mavs with, being able to play Maxi Kleber as a small ball five and having five out and spacing the court with Spencer Dinwiddie and Jalen Brunson and Luka, Dorian Finney-Smith, like they can really, I think, maneuver and manipulate Phoenix's defense quite a bit and give them a lot of trouble. I think it's got a chance to be a great series, but I'm really tempted to pick the Mavs. I thought coming into playoffs, they were the biggest challenge to the Suns with the way they were playing. And like McMahon said, with them guarding the way they are now, it makes them a much, much different.
Listen, I feel you. I understand. It's a reasonable thing to say. The Suns did not look good in this series. Cam Johnson has been in a slump. Jay Crowder has been in an offensive slump. Booker was hurt. They're, that second unit, there's some spots on it that are mildly shaky. But God, in this clutch time, they just are so.
Hold on. I got something for you on that. Obviously, the Suns absolutely dominant all season long in the clutch. After February 2nd, when the Mavericks managed to lose at home in overtime to the Oklahoma City Tanker, the best clutch team in the NBA, the Dallas Mavericks, and not by a little bit, net rating of plus 41.6. Okay. They were number one in clutch offense in that span. They were number one in clutch defense in that span. Obviously, a huge part of the Mavs' clutch success down the stretch of the second half of the regular season was the trade for Spencer Dinwiddie. He had some big-time clutch moments, the game winner in Boston, the buzzer beater in Brooklyn, several others. He did not have a great series in Utah. They need another, big-time stretch of games from Spencer Dinwiddie. But I'm just saying, Chris Paul is the best closer in basketball, no doubt there. But the Mavs morphed into a clutch monster, and I'm fascinated to see how those situations play out.
I'll tell you what, it's not exactly a reward for the number one seed, because by the end here, the Pelicans were not an 8 seed.
Yeah,
they were not a 36-win team the way they were playing at the end.
And they were better even without CJ all the way through, to be fair. I mean, they were playing like a 45 or 46-win team before, after the trade. So,
and now they get the Mavericks who, arguably were the best team in the West coming down the stretch. So, hey, that's what you got to do to win a title.
McMahon, what you got to feel in that series?
I can't pick against the Suns just because, hey, they were the clear-cut best team in the NBA all season long. I think it's going to be a heck of a series. I think it might be a 7-game series.
Feels a little bit like Pistons Cavs 2007, Brian, maybe.
Yeah, but this Suns team doesn't have weaknesses like that Pistons team did. I mean, I don't know. The Suns do a lot really, really well, and Monty Williams, the Monty Williams Chris Paul dynamic is incredible. The Chris Paul Booker dynamic is incredible, and the rise of Mikal Bridges, who was the second best player in the series because Booker missed most of it, was the second best player in the series for the Suns. I mean, if this is who Bridges is going to be going forward, he's going to be more than just a defensive stopper. He's going to be a genuine offensive, third option. The Suns are even more potent than they were for most of the season. All right. Thanks for listening to the Hoop Collective podcast. We all got to travel and move onward. I'm headed to Boston. Bontemps is headed to Miami, and eventually McMahon will make it to Phoenix. So we'll talk to you next week when the second round will be underway.
Adios, amigos.